Julie here from Jersey Tomato Press. I'm in Narragansett, Rhode Island, actually South Kingston at the University of Rhode Island. We have over 100 students graduating from New Jersey, and today we have Mayor Cory speaking. So I think it'll be very interesting. Welcome to graduation 2011 at the University of Rhode Island.
Life's miracles. But I often think we get too consumed with life to even notice the glory that is around us. And this miracle came in a simple question. This elderly woman seemed to retreat within herself and then open her eyes and look at me to stop me from talking. She raised her hand and she said, "Would you please tell me something? If I decide to fight this case, will it help other people?" I looked at her and I said, "Well, I don't know if you heard me, but I said we maybe have a 5 or 10% chance of winning a case like this, and I need to explain to you more of the process, but eventually if we do decide to fight and win, yeah, it'll set something called a precedent, and yes, we could use it." And she put up her hand to shut me up again, and she had heard that word yes, and she closed her eyes tight, and almost as if she was grasping those three-letter words, she grasped it in her hand and slammed it on the table in a fist. She opened her eyes and she looked as if she was possessed. And she pushed her chair back and she stood up. She looked at me hard and then waved her finger and she simply said, 5 or 10% is enough for me. And she strode right out of the room. I was in awe, sort of looking at her, and then I stood and stared next to the lawyer who was next to me. We both stared at each other for a while until I realized I had to give the woman a ride home, and so I chased after her, put her in the car, and I'm telling you, I worked for the next 3 days harder than I'd ever did, trying to do everything I could to prepare for our first preliminary hearing. I was going to win this case and fight with this woman. And I tell you, I did everything you could imagine. I even called Johnny Cochran, God rest his soul. He didn't return my calls. On the 4th morning, I got a call from an amazing person who told me, you need to slow down. I said, "What? I got work to do. You need to slow down." I go, What? I have some bad news for you. And I said, "What is it?" And they said, "Well, last night your client had a heart attack and died." I remember slamming down the phone and feeling like I was ready to cuss like a sailor, to explode in anger and rage. But then I suddenly realized in my arrogance, I thought God had put the great Cory Booker there for my client. But in reality, God had put this great client there for the poor Cory Booker. You see, this is what life affords you in every moment. Simple choice. To accept things as they are, or take responsibility for changing them. If you choose change, it's not a one-time thing, a once-a-month thing. It's not a grand career to pursue for the next 15 or 20 years of your life. It starts right now. It starts in those small things that most people might not notice, the smiling at somebody and giving them your smile because they don't have one of their own. It means extending small acts of kindness because in their aggregate, they are great things. In fact, the greatest thing you could do almost every day is a small act of kindness. What you send out in energy will always come back to you, even if it doesn't look that way in the immediate moment. It means looking around at savage circumstance and not accepting it. It means hearing a chorus of cynics and not listening. It means confronting the darkest of nights and still insisting that you will shine your own. It is realizing that courage often is best shown in the determination just to get out of bed in the morning with the same persistent, courageous attitude of love day after day. My first client showed me this. I remember putting flowers before her door and someone came over to me and said, "Are you that lawyer boy that was helping her out?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Oh, I don't know what you did for her, but the last 3 days of her life were the happiest that I've ever known." I want to conclude with a very personal story. My grandfather, who has been at my every graduation, the man who in many ways vision shaped who I am, he gave me some words once. He said to me as I was leaving him, as he was battling cancer yet another time, he was weak and he was failing. I went to hug him, and he reached up and grabbed my shoulder and looked at me and said, "I love you, I love your children, and I love your grandchildren." I thought for sure he was dealing with delirium or dementia, because I still to this day am not married and most certainly do not have children or grandchildren. And I remember leaving feeling confused and almost seeing my mighty grandfather in this state, feeling hurtful for what he was enduring. Months later, I was campaigning for that big election in Newark, running for mayor my first time, and I got a phone call from my family member who said, "Call your grandmother right away, your grandfather has died." I'll never forget exactly where I was. I didn't listen. I pulled over to the side of the road, and I wept like a little child, like the child he met on his first graduation, like a child who felt rudderless, like my hero had been taken. And as I sat there looking for meaning in all of it, I remembered his last words. He said he loved me, he loved my children, and he loved my grandchildren. I was told once by astrophysicists that if you look in the sky, you can see the light of stars, but many of them are dead and long gone, but their light and their energy lives on for eternity. This was my grandfather's way. While he was here, in every moment, he infused it with his unique energy and spirit and light. He faced segregation, he faced depression, he faced discrimination. But every day he stood for his truth and his light. And the one thing he asked his grandson on the most memorable moments, my graduations, was that I would stand up and love the way that he did. Love a way that is so bright and enduring that children yet unborn will be affected by your love. He said, "Stand up," because people stood for me that I'll never know. They fought for me. They struggled for me. They scrubbed toilets for me. They bled the soil of this nation red. We must stand up. Class of 2011, you must stand, because this world needs you. It needs your uniqueness. It needs your divinity. It needs your love. You must stand up, because change will not roll in, as King said, on the wheels of inevitability. It must be carried in on the backs of soldiers who day in and day out stand up for it. You must stand. Because as Frederick Douglass says, in life you don't get everything you pay for, but you must pay for everything you get. You must stand up and don't give in to the cynical surrender of others. You must stand up and not give in to those whose fear has grown bigger than their faith. You must stand up. And when you stand for all of your honor and all of your dignity. Stand in the quiet moments when no one is looking and on the public stage, but for God's sake, stand. And if you stand like this, I know that we will change our world. I know that we will find hope amidst despair. And I know that this class, their truth, your very essence, will live on for eternity. Thank you very much.
Standing ovation by thousands of people for Mayor Booker.
Miguel Orlando Erizari.
We have New Jersey people.
Andrew Herman Greenberg. Harry Otempo. Miguel Orlando Erizari.
We have New Jersey people.
Andrew Herman Greenberg. Harry Otempo.